What's going on, Star Wars community? Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker was released this past weekend, and boy do we have a lot to talk about. So sit down and hit that hyperdrive because Star Wars World Review starts now. So The Rise of Skywalker was just released this past weekend, and if you're a Star Wars fan, you probably already saw it by now, but in case you haven't seen it, please make sure you go check out the movie before you check out this review. We will be spoiling some of the major scenes in this movie, including some of the major plot points and some of the characters that we didn't know were in this movie as well. That being said, this review is just a critique of the movie itself and not necessarily an explanation of the scenes that we saw in The Rise of Skywalker. We'll have another video later on that's going to explain some of the major things that we saw that you might not understand and how they connect to the major Star Wars universe, that I do believe that once you know these things are going to make the story of The Rise of Skywalker that much more enjoyable. And if you're on the fence about whether you like it or not, I think that once you hear those things, you really will enjoy the movie for what it is. Now, this movie has people going crazy about whether they like it or don't like this movie. And you got people defending it, you got people really blasting it because they don't like it at all. But honestly, I really enjoyed this movie. I thought this movie was a great ending to the Skywalker Saga. There are some things that I didn't like at all about it, but there are also several things that I really did like it the very first time that I saw it. Having to come in after the movie The Last Jedi, I thought that J.J. Abrams did a great job of closing out a lot of the plot holes that Rian Johnson left open, about explaining some of the story elements that Rian Johnson killed off that we were hoping to get more information on in The Last Jedi, but he just canceled them out. And I saw the movie multiple times, and the more I saw it, the more I understood it. The more that I understood what J.J. Abrams was trying to do, or at least I feel he was trying to do. Now, J.J. Abrams came out and said directly that he knows that there was no way he was going to be able to please the fan base. He knew that every scene that he wrote and filmed in this particular movie and that he cut into the movie itself was either going to be hated or loved by the Star Wars fan base. But that's just the way the Star Wars fans are. You're never really going to be able to please all of us. The only thing that we can all agree on at this point is that Baby Yoda is probably the cutest character in the Star Wars universe. But this movie does feel kind of rushed, and I think that's the reason that most people don't like this movie, that everything happens so fast, that the information that we're getting, we don't get a lot of time to absorb it, and we don't get a lot of time to appreciate it. But I believe that that's because of the fact that J.J. Abrams had to tell the story as quickly as possible and try to fill in those plot holes from The Last Jedi as quickly as possible so that he can get on with the story that he was trying to tell in this movie. He basically had to take The Force Awakens, the first movie that he made, and The Last Jedi and stitch those movies together because the visions of the two directors were completely different. So J.J. Abrams worked his magic so that he can connect both of the stories so that we can get one cohesive story that we could all understand. And another thing that a lot of people didn't like was the way that Princess Leia was used in this movie. They didn't like the scenes that she was in. They didn't like the way that the CGI kind of came out. But the more that I saw the movie, the better I felt about those scenes. I think that they did a great job of respecting the character of Princess Leia, and I think that Carrie Fisher would have been proud of the final product of the movie. That being said, I can see the awkwardness in using these scenes because the dialogue that was recorded for Princess Leia was not for these scenes, so it seemed like the dialogue was reactionary to what Princess Leia was saying. Rather than building the dialogue around the scene was built around the dialogue of Princess Leia. So yeah, it led to some awkward moments and some awkward reactions from the people because they weren't looking at Princess Leia when this was filmed. But I really did enjoy her arc and her role in this movie. I thought it was a little bit fast, but again, that was due to the shortage of footage that they had because they didn't do a good job, in my opinion, in The Last Jedi of respecting her character and giving her the opportunity to be able to be sent off in a different way. I think that J.J. Abrams did an amazing job of respecting the character of Princess Leia and letting us know that she was trained in the Jedi arts. I thought it was awesome that we got to see Princess Leia train with a lightsaber, even though that was CGI. It's something that was already in canon from one of the books, but to see the scene where she's training with Luke with her lightsaber and his lightsaber, I thought that was really awesome. And the explanation of how she came to give up her life so that her son could be saved, I thought that was an amazing thing. And then the surprise return of Han Solo was just awesome because it was really cool to see that Han Solo got to come back one more time, redeem his character in trying to be able to save his son. I thought that it was really cool how Kylo Ren used that same dialogue that he used in The Force Awakens when he killed Han Solo to use the same dialogue and now be saved by Han Solo. Now, we all know that Harrison Ford is the one that requested that his character be killed off long ago in the Star Wars universe, and that J.J. Abrams obliged him by killing off his character in The Force Awakens. But him coming back, I feel like, was a huge nod of respect to Carrie Fisher, as his particular scene was tied directly into the death of Princess Leia. And I love that the redemption of Kylo Ren was finally completed, and the way that it was completed to me was the best way to send him off. J.J. Abrams did a great job of bringing Kylo Ren's redemption that started in The Last Jedi over to this movie as well, because in the end he sacrifices himself so that Rey could live. I also love the fact that Emperor Palpatine was the main bad guy in this movie as well. He is the main antagonist in this movie, and I really enjoyed that because it just lets us know that there's been one person that's been pulling the strings from day one. This means that the main bad guy from all the way in episode 1 to episode 9 is Emperor Palpatine. I feel like that just adds more cohesiveness to the entire Skywalker saga, as there has been only one main villain throughout the whole story. We finally see a proper defeat for Emperor Palpatine. I think that this was a perfect way for him to go out, because I feel that the way that he went out in the original trilogy was just anticlimactic. The one thing that I really don't understand is how Palpatine doesn't understand that using Force Lightning just doesn't work for him. Force Lightning didn't work on Mace Windu, it just helped him fried his face. Force Lightning didn't work on Darth Vader. Darth Vader just got electrified and then threw him off the balcony. And in this movie, he uses a much more powerful version of the Force Lightning against Rey, but Rey bounces it back towards him, and ultimately that is what destroys him. But then the dialogue that Palpatine had in this movie was also really cool, because it just explained a lot of the things that we didn't get explained previously in the other movies. When Supreme Leader Snoke was killed, we didn't know where he came from. We didn't know if we were going to get any more information on him. But Palpatine tells us that he is the one that created Snoke. And then we find out that Snoke was just a clone, a puppet for Palpatine to be able to manipulate Kylo Ren. I believe that Palpatine had many backup plans in place. Ultimately, his goal was to get Rey to take over for him. But I feel like he was also trying to train Kylo Ren and make him powerful so that he can take over for him in the event that Rey was not going to be the one that took the place for him. But that was all explained really fast, and it was really easy to miss out on all of that information, so I understand why some people got upset about how rushed that scene was. And I do think that the final battle scene in the movie was a little bit anticlimactic. I wish that there would have been a little bit more action as far as the aerial fights were concerned, but the ground fighting was really good. When they landed on that Star Destroyer and they started using the horses, and then the people started rushing towards, I thought that was a very cool ground battle. I thought that was very well choreographed. I thought the action was really awesome in that particular scene. Just the way that the characters really carried themselves, I thought was really good. The one character that I really didn't like in this movie was Poe Dameron. Compared to his two previous entries in The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, I feel like that character was a much better version of Poe Dameron than the one we saw in this particular movie. I think Rey's character was a huge improvement over the previous movies. I think her acting actually improved in the way that she portrayed herself as a Jedi and as someone that understood the Force. I feel like she did a better job of it with this particular movie. I thought that Finn's character in this movie was used very well. I really enjoyed it. But the one thing that I really didn't like about all three of them was the fact that they tried to make them the new Han, Luke, and Leia, and I never felt like they actually bonded together. And this is because of the movie The Last Jedi. I think The Last Jedi did a terrible job with all three characters because they were always separate. They never got to form a bond, and the characters never got to know each other the way that we wish that they knew each other for this movie. And I feel like many of the moviegoers saw this, and I feel like they felt disconnected from these particular characters. They're not as memorable as the characters from the original trilogy. They're not as memorable as the characters that we saw in the prequel trilogy either. And if you saw my previous review of the two books that lead up to the Rise of Skywalker, I did tell you that Rose Tico and that Finn were not a couple, and they did come out in this movie as well. The way that they used that I thought was very cool, because they just played it off like they're good friends, and that's exactly where they had left it off in one of the books. They spoke about it, they thought about whether or not they would be able to work it out, but they chose to be just friends. And I think that the way that the characters interacted with each other in this movie was very respectful, and I think that that just plays a lot better for these two particular characters, because in The Last Jedi I just didn't like the dynamic between the two characters. I didn't feel like they should be together, and it was just a fleeting moment between them that just led them to connect like that. Ultimately, the way that J.J. Abrams used all of the characters was very good. I really did enjoy it, except for Poe Dameron. I think there could have been some improvements there. I feel like he tried to make him too much like Han Solo, and we don't care about Poe Dameron the way that we cared about Han Solo. Well, that is our overall review of The Rise of Skywalker. Tell us down below what you guys thought about the movie. Have you seen it once? Have you seen it twice? How many times did you guys see it over the weekend? Did you like it more or less every time that you saw it? The more that I saw the movie, the more that I like it. But if you guys didn't like it, well, there's always The Mandalorian and the Obi-Wan series that's going to be coming out next year to hold you over. In the meantime, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you're following us on social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also follow me personally at the following handles below. I hope you enjoyed this review of The Rise of Skywalker. Be on the lookout for another video where we're going to be explaining a lot of the things that you saw in the movie that you might not understand and that connect to the greater Star Wars universe. Leave a comment down below, and as always, we can't wait to have you back here at Star Wars Row Reviews.